Welcome to the KOSEC Show. Join the KOSEC KODARI Securities team as they share their insights on the Australian share market, discussing some of their best performing companies, macroeconomic news from offshore, including local domestic news, foreign exchange, as well as commodities. If you have any questions regarding the share market, our phone lines are open. You can dial in on 1300 854 151 or alternatively email info@kosec.com.au. Exclusively on this show, each guest will reveal their hottest stock pick. For more information on any of the topics discussed, go to kosec.com.au. The information featured in this program is general in nature and does not take into account your personal circumstances, needs, or objectives. Guests appearing on the program may own or have commercial arrangements with some of the companies mentioned. Before making any investment insurance or financial planning decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.
Good afternoon, investors. My name is Will Brownlee, and welcome to the KOSEC Show, where we discuss all things relevant in the market this week. Macroeconomic data, currencies and commodities, top performers for the week that was, and of course, our hottest stock picks for the week to come. Before I go any further, please allow me to introduce my slightly minimized investment panel and resident experts in the market. To my left, the ever-wonderful Caroline Wong, and of course, the ever-stoic Gabriel Ryan. Welcome, ladies and gents. No Louis this week. I hope he's feeling a little bit better, but onwards and upwards, because it is an exciting week. We've got a lot to unpack, a lot of exciting stuff that's going to be happening, a lot of really exciting opportunities for our viewers. But let's start off with how the markets have been behaving this week. Mr. Ryan, what have you been watching this week? What have we been seeing? What's the sentiment? What have people been thinking?
Well, we've had a pretty good week last week as well. We did really well. This week's been a little bit more mixed. So we did have a day where we were actually down. I think it was around 1.5% at one point. I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday. And then we got bought back up quite aggressively as well.
We finished only down 0.3.
Exactly. So we formed a very nice hammer pattern as well. And today I was looking just before we came in. We actually...
sorry to interrupt. And I will continue to do this. But just for our viewers, what is a hammer pattern? Because that is a technical term that we use, and it's a very bullish indicator. What does it actually mean? What is a hammer pattern?
So essentially, a hammer it's analysis of the price action where you have an opening price, which is high at any point, whatever, and it gets sold down to a certain point. So it's going to be a longer body at one point, and then from the low, it gets brought back up closer to where it originally opened. And it's a sentiment of a rejection of lower levels and lower prices. So it's quite a positive indicator in that sense, potentially.
So it's basically like people saying, investors saying, I don't like it at that levels. I reckon it should go higher, and I'll continue to buy it because I think that's a good thing.
It does show a lot of buying support.
A lot of buying support there. So it's a good thing. Very good, very good. And we see hammer patterns quite a lot in stocks as well. You have big buying signals.
Yeah, exactly.
And so our whole index sort of saw that the other day. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah, the 300.
Yes. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, so this week we a little bit more mixed, I suppose, for a number of reasons. Obviously, we had a very good run, especially after and up to Easter. And we did end up closing the day up today in terms of what the overall week was. I'd have to turn that over to Caroline for the exact data. But yeah, we had a pretty nice week, I think, yeah.
Yeah, well, how was the overall week?
Flat. So we're back to square one.
Okay.
So for today, we closed.
That's the story of my life, to be fair. Continue.
But for today, we just closed 7 points higher. But at least it's still a green, so it's not too bad.
And we are firmly above the 7,000. Are we still above the 7,000 mark, or have we now
drifted just slightly below 7,000?
Oh no.
But there was a concern for overall investors because you're wondering if we could bridge past that pre-pandemic highs, which clearly we haven't been able to do so.
Yeah. And obviously we're seeing quite a bit of sentiment. How's the US doing? Is that they've got sold off quite a bit recently, but they've been similar, haven't they? It's been up and down, up and down. This is one of those environments where it's very much depending on what stocks you hold. Like I know if you're holding stocks that they're seeing the worst of it and they're going down a lot, then you're not having a fun week. But if you're holding certain businesses that are going up, then it could be a very good time. So you've got that bull market where everything's going up, bear market where everything's going down, and then you've got this sort of sideways choppy market where some things are up, some things are down. Real stock pickers sort of environment. Am I right? Very good. Let's go over to what's actually causing this volatility. Mr. Ryan, what's happening over in the US? Our good friend, Mr. Biden now is Sleepy Joe Biden. What's he doing?
So overnight, I think it was part of his sort of ESG summit that he held with a few other world leaders. They flagged potential increase in capital gains tax
Okay.
over in the US.
So that is the tax you pay on the gain you get, not from your income, but from your investment.
From your investments.
Yes, okay.
So that's only going to affect individuals that have earned $1 million or more US dollars from their investments, and that'll be at a capped or a max rate of around 43.9%, I think, because there already is a statutory level there around.
So
3.9.
so I invest, let's just say, $1 million into shares.
Yeah.
Okay, and they go up, let's just say, 10%. Then I need to pay 43.9 or around 43% of that in tax on what I've made.
I imagine it's on the profit.
On the
right?
profit.
On the profit.
On the profit that I've made. Yeah. Doesn't seem like a very attractive proposition.
No, that's probably why we saw the US markets get sold off a little bit yesterday.
Isn't that a bit counterintuitive? Because don't you pay capital gains tax when you sell things?
I think you want to get it when it's a lower rate, though. I think
that's the whole idea.
Get out quickly.
Capital gains tax is such an interesting thing. Obviously, it's quite large over there. I know here in Australia, if you hold for more than a year, it's 15%.
Yes.
If you do CFDing, it's like contract for difference. I know that it is built into your work income, so your taxable income. And if you go to New Zealand, they don't have any capital gains tax. So absolutely fantastic. So is this statement by Biden, what's the premise behind that? Why is he doing this?
Well, they've obviously spent a lot of money in the US in the past year, almost unprecedented amounts of money, you could say. And they've also flagged, they've come out with this infrastructure spend, so they're going to need to find a revenue stream to fund that, essentially.
Right.
So they're going to target income investments or investment income as a means to fund all that operation.
So they're doing infrastructure spend, but they're also doing this ESG, this whole green energy space at the moment as well. Now, bear with me on this because I'm linking two and two together. That's things like electric car battery places. Is that right, Caroline? Is that what he's sort of funding?
Yeah, but I think the global attention now is more towards carbon emissions. I think EU, they're planning for zero carbon emissions by 2030.
And one of the big carbon emissions is cars as well.
That's right.
So they're doing a lot of electric vehicles. One of the biggest electric vehicle makers in the world is, of course, Tesla, Elon Musk. He also has taken a relatively large position in Bitcoin in recent times. It's gone up splendidly since then. He bought it around 30,000. Obviously, it capped out relatively recently, not anymore, but it capped out around the $60,000 mark. Is there a pretty strong conjecture that maybe this capital gains tax has been targeted to people like himself that maybe have made a lot of money? Counterintuitive, so it's like they're giving money for what he's doing. Does anyone else find that a little bit strange?
Well, I suppose, I mean, at the end of the day, when you've got so much spending going on, you have to try and find a way to fund it.
Of course.
And at the end of the day, they're going to target whatever they can to try and get the revenue in.
And they are targeting the rich and the wealthy. But unfortunately, a lot of people are now getting swept up in it and moving into a negative position. Very good. So speaking of money, speaking of that sort of genre stuff, there's another money that's out on the block. Let's talk about this whole cardless cash thing that's sort of sweeping around at the moment. Caroline, care to take that away?
Sure. So for starters, Norway is now the country where traditional cash is now used the least anywhere in the world. So if you think about it, in the country itself, only 3 to 4% of the country's transactions are conducted in cash, physical cash and coins. So that's very, very little.
Does it even happen here much? I can't remember the last time I used a coin.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I saw a coin.
I can't remember the colors of the notes, actually.
Yeah.
50 and 100.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think it's yellow. Don't we call it a pineapple here?
Yeah, we do.
A pineapple, and then the bigger one's a watermelon? Or is the smaller one a watermelon?
I think the small one's red, so it'd be all pink, it'd be watermelon.
Anyway, we digress. Continue.
Anyway, the Central Bank of Norway say it is time to look deeper into the introduction of a digital currency. But bear in mind, this is also a bank that not too long ago wasn't too interested in digital currencies. So we look at the
Funny how
graphic.
that changes.
Very short period of time. But if we look at the graphic that I have, so it outlines the map which shows where global banks are at in terms of rolling out digital currencies. So the one and only country that has successfully rolled out digital currencies is Bahamas. They call it the sand dollar. So the sand you see in a beach, sand dollar, that was rolled out in October 2020. So last year. So the countries highlighted in pink, you can see that's China, India, and South Africa.
And what have they done? They plan to issue it.
Yeah, correct. And then we fall in the dark blue category. So that's Australia and United States. So these countries are still in the initial phases of research and exploration. And finally, we look at the light blue category. So that's Russia, Canada, UK, and possibly Ireland. So these are countries who are exploring the practicality of digital currencies. But earlier in the week, if you remember well, the Bank of England announced that they are setting up a task force to look at digital currencies.
Wait for it. It is
Britcoin.
amazing name. Unbelievable. Britcoin.
There is an R there though, so you have to be very careful.
There's a lot of really interesting stuff. I was talking to someone today about crypto. Obviously, they're going down a little bit right now. He's like, "What's the next big crypto phase and stuff?" And we found one. It's called Pirate Coin, and the code for it is R. A R R R. So I wonder if Britcoin, because it sounds like Bitcoin, I wonder if people are going to mistake it and it's going to suddenly move in a positive direction. We've seen a bit of that.
Yeah, people will just be buying British pounds.
This is buying British pounds. Anyway, so what does this mean? What do we think? What's the sort of future of this?
Central banks are doing this not because they want to avoid the risk of new form of money creation, so which is just crypto. But more importantly, the idea is that cash will not be displaced, but more importantly, for this digital currency to be used alongside with traditional form of currencies.
Okay, so it's going to be a bit of a. There is no, there's no hard and fast on anything. It's going to be moving together. Perfect. But what's your take on it, Gabe?
Well, I mean, I think it's just part of a broader trend that we've been seeing, and that I think it's exacerbated by the pandemic. So there was already a trend towards cashless society, I think, over maybe the past decade or so.
Yes, absolutely.
And it allows governments to keep a greater lid on transactions, so they can see everything that's going on, as opposed to cash, which is a little bit harder to control and maintain. Digital currency is much easier to follow, and you can see transactions that people are putting through, maybe suspicious ones even at that.
I can't wait for the next mafia movie to come out, and they've done a big deal out of Mexico, and they've done an exchange for a whole lot of cocaine, and they've done it for a big credit card.
Yeah.
It's not something we don't have a suitcase full of cash anymore. Now it's a credit card. I don't know if it's going to have the same effect.
Maybe not.
Listen, while we're on that subject or another subject, let's just talk a little bit about these trade tensions that are going here locally, because we're in a little bit of tension with China at the moment. We've got iron ore prices that are going through the roof right now. I know we're a big supplier of iron ore. Iron ore topped an all-time high earlier.
Correct, more than 10-year high.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk about that later in the next section. But that's feeding into the whole trade tensions as well. What's your take on that at the moment?
Well, I mean, we've seen over the past few months, we saw the ban or the tariffs imposed on wine.
Soy? Was it
soy?
soybean?
It was certain agricultural goods going through because there were pests that were discovered in the grain.
Yeah, of course.
In the shipments. We had wine, wool, lobsters, things of that nature, now coal as well. So that's sort of been the backdrop. We've just had the federal government as well withdraw from the Belt and Road Initiative as well, which is sort of viewed as a method by which the Chinese can promulgate their influence globally, for whatever your opinion on that is. The Victorian government, I think, unilaterally signed up to that a few years ago. The government withdrew from that, and that obviously hasn't really sweetened relations at all. It's probably just soured them somewhat.
Always the way. Always the way. Listen, Caroline, this week we had Aussie retail sales come out. Talk us through a little bit about that.
So it's just preliminary retail sales for March. So the final one is out 5th of May next month. It ticked up 1.4%, so that's good. This is because in February we were down. A lot of it was done by spendings in restaurants, cafes, and takeaway services. But more importantly, the shift, we can see it's towards services spending. And that's natural because considering the fact that restrictions have been unwind. Yeah, and then ANZ is also, this is in line with ANZ's figures, considering the fact that credit card spending have been on rise, especially in March. It's up significantly as compared to previous years.
So good. All good?
Good.
All good. So which stocks are going to benefit from that?
Actually, for this week, we have seen a lot of gains across consumer discretionary sectors, so like Accent Group.
That was just merged with Glue. They've just bought Glue and up 7% today. Sold back down. Finished
10.
Up 10% today. Sold back down. All-time high. Extreme all-time high.
16% up this week. Very, very phenomenal run.
Breville Group has sort of been not going down.
Yeah. I think Nick Scali was up 7% this week. I think a little bit of pattern that we can see is that these stocks that have done very well, they have a significant online presence, but they also have a very heavy in-store presence. So they benefit during COVID and post-COVID.
I was thinking the other day, everyone's going out to buy a house, right? Everyone's buying a house because the property boom's going up. Well, the property's going up. housing prices. Everyone's buying houses now. Cheap. A lot of people say it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent because interest rates are so low. When was the last time you bought a house without buying a kettle? Logic would be that Breville Group could do quite well.
Yep.
Am I the only one that's seeing that logic? No, clearly. All right, fair enough, fair enough. That's not a problem whatsoever. But it is, in all seriousness, a lot of retail spending is doing quite well, especially things like Harvey Norman, that's been doing quite well as well. Any sort of other news that we've been focusing on or anything out that's sort of come out? Any big surprises on stocks that you've seen?
We'll tell you later.
We'll tell you later. I love a little bit of suspense. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear a little bit more about this, potentially you're looking at investing into the market for the first time, you want to have a chat to some qualified professionals, maybe out on a nice boat. Well, recently we had an amazing event out on a luxury yacht on the Sydney Harbour where we provided food, we provided wine, we provided more wine because people got thirsty after eating the food. And then, of course, we had a wonderful information session all about the market, all about how we invest. Let's take a look at what that looked like. So that was an amazing event. That was a beautiful day. It was absolutely splendid. We got overbooked. We had more people than we could cater for. So back by popular demand, we're going to do it again. This time we're going to do it bigger. We're going to do it better. We're going to do more food. We're going to do more alcohol. But more importantly, we're going to do a much bigger boat. Let's take a look at the next boat we're going to do. So that's Ghost 2, and we are going to be doing an event on that wonderful ship as of next month. If you're interested in coming along for a session on the stock market, collaborating, we have limited spaces available. Everything will be provided for you. It's going to be on Sydney Harbour. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. If you are interested, please drop us a line, info@kosec.com.au. We're going to take a short break. When we get back, if you do have any questions for our panel, please feel free to take a video and email it through to info@kosec.com.au. Everyone who does will receive a copy of our book, Stock Market Success, Retailing in Dymocks for $39.95, or our magazine, Selling in News Agencies Australia-wide for $19.95. We'll be back shortly with your currency and commodity overview.
As kids, we were active. We were creative. We questioned all things. We celebrated everything. We took risks. We had no limits. We had dreams. Our imagination helped us solve problems and create new possibilities. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions." We are in an ever-changing world filled with fear and uncertainty. Don't let that change the inner child within. As Walt Disney said, imagination has no age and dreams are forever. KOSEC is here to help build your dreams and create possibilities. Secure your success with KOSEC KODARI Securities.
Throughout time, humans have relied upon innovation to advance and evolve, using new and improved methods, having meaningful impact on society and industries. In order to advance, ideas were transformed into new products and services. The stock market has also evolved through innovation. Innovation has been key to KOSEC's success. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning, KOSEC has streamlined processes to bring better opportunities to clients. Opportunities that might have otherwise been missed. Join a company that innovates to bring clients the best opportunities and service. Invest with a solid strategy. Invest with confidence. Invest with KOSEC. KODARI Securities.
How do you get the highest returns in the stock market on a consistent basis? Obsessed with this idea, Michael Kodari forms KOSEC, KODARI Securities. He seeks, in his own words, a revolutionary investment strategy based on better information and knowledge. Wealth begins with better knowledge, becomes his motto. He seeks to identify and accurately pick the next top-performing stocks on the ASX. He seeks for consistency. Michael Kodari creates a unique stock market filtering system he names Lotus Blue, named after a flower that blooms just once. Because in investing, timing is everything. See how accurate KOSEC stock picks are. Get a free 7-day access to Lotus Blue today. If you want the KOSEC investment edge, you know what you have to do. Call KOSEC now or visit kosec.com.au and take advantage of the insights he reserves for his clients.
Do you follow currencies? Want to know how the Aussie dollar is travelling? Do you love commodities? Do you see gold prices rising? Do you see more demand for oil? Do you see the world economy growing? Get the latest in-depth analysis and discussion on commodities every week from real traders. Get real insights only on the KOSEC Show.
Welcome back. Let's talk currencies and commodities, all things that shine, sparkle, fold, and make the world go round. Let's go straight over to Mr. Ryan. You've been looking very closely at the price of oil. How are we doing? I've heard we had some cuts. I've heard some bullish price action. We've got this whole pandemic thing still looming its ugly head all over again. What are your thoughts on oil?
Well, I guess there's probably just two major things at the moment. So first of all, India, which is one of the largest consumers of oil globally, is having a bit of a situation vis-a-vis COVID. I think they've had the highest number of cases recorded by any country ever. Roughly 312,000, I think, in one day. And that was the biggest record set ever. And naturally, they're getting walloped at the moment there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lack of oxygen tanks. There's a whole dire situation there. So that is having a bit of a dampening effect on oil. On top of that, Biden's come out and said a 50 to 52% reduction in emissions by 2030.
So he wants to halve emissions.
Yeah.
And that's 9 years from now.
Yes.
Don't know if he'll still be alive, but we'll see. Hope he's not watching this, otherwise I might get a knock on my door from the Secret Service. But he is 9 years is a pretty bullish target. Are we in the same spot as our Morrison government? Are they saying the same things, or is that sort of?
Yeah, so I think Prime Minister flagged a move towards more hydrogen-based energy resources. But as relates to oil in particular, I'll just touch on that point again. So Biden came out and said 50% reduction by 2030. Yeah. Or US is one of the largest producers of oil globally. So this is going to have a pretty negative impact on US production of oil and does bode well potentially.
Just WTI or Brent as well?
Well, I'm pretty sure crude Texas Index is the US benchmark for oil. So Brent crude, obviously the Europeans and everyone else is moving towards different sources, even Aramco's flag.
So this isn't just to do with the US, this is to do with
it's a global trend away from non-renewables anyway. And we've already seen that reflected. The Chinese have already said they're going to start cutting coal consumption by 2026 to 2030 as well. Yeah. Which is interesting considering they're one of the largest consumers at the moment anyway. Yeah. But we'll have to see what happens with that. But certainly a lot of interesting things happening at the moment.
What do you think about oil short term?
I'd probably just be a little bit more wary of it, especially with this Indian situation. Yeah. Plus a little bit of negative risk on sentiment after those Biden comments. So we'll have to see what happens really.
I think it's creating choppiness, isn't it? I think this is the theme going right throughout this podcast. Certainly the theme this week is volatility, it's choppiness in the market. We've got two competing things here. We've got this whole future ESG sort of going to the low carbon emissions sort of sources. Then we have sort of things ramping back up again. Obviously, Saudi Aramco wants to keep prices high. A lot of the oil-producing companies want to keep prices high, creating this volatility, a bit of a trader's dream, shall we say.
Certainly.
Yeah. Let's go straight over to Caroline, because I know you've had your BDI on ore recently. Okay. You never get sick of that one, because that reached an all-time high this week or close to.
Yeah, so if we look straight into the chart, we can see that it's a very, very strong week for iron ore. As of Wednesday, it hit $189 a ton, so it's very, very strong.
It's certainly eyeing new time highs, isn't it? See what I did there? Eyeing new. Don't worry, all good.
So it's two factors again. On the demand side of things, China has been ramping up purchase of iron ore ahead of their Labor Day holiday. So that will take place from 1st to 5th May. But on the supply side of things, Vale has just been disappointing once again for the first quarter production. They produced 68 million tons, so that fell short of expectations of 72 million tons. So that's not too good. And that's also why the price of iron ore has been further boosted. But the longer-term outlook for iron ore is quite bearish. UBS believes that the price of iron ore will fall to about $137 a ton by the end of the year.
And I think there's quite a few Citigroups, I think, also said 127. Like, it's pretty hard to find price targets that are much above where it's currently sitting at.
I think 137 is one of the most optimistic ones.
Yeah, exactly. I think I don't know, don't quote me, but I thought I saw 90 somewhere around there. Somewhere in that. I mean, they love to obviously they love to bring the price down because it'd be great to pick it up at a discount if it is going. I think we might see a 200 price out, or do you think that's just unreasonable?
When? Over what time frame?
I don't know, over the next sort of 6 months.
Possible.
Okay, that means no. All right, perfect. Let's talk about something else that's on an all-time high. AFR, I think it was Wednesday, came out and they were talking about copper. Copper being on a 10-year high, and it was sitting at around the 10,000 US per metric ton. Yep. And Goldman Sachs had upgraded their price target for the precious metal or for the metal. Talk to us about copper, Gabe. Not something that we cover a lot of, but talk to us about how that's sort of been going.
Well, something you pointed out, I think, last week, Will, is that copper is sort of a bellwether for the economy, and economic growth is expected to rise everywhere, essentially. I think there are a few narratives really supporting copper, moving forward. And one of these is EVs, funnily enough. So
Okay.
I don't know if I flagged this before, but copper or EVs actually require about 60% more copper than internal combustion engine vehicles do.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's an interesting point, which probably would increase that. We've also got a lot of infrastructure spending. Copper has many industrial properties and use cases across the board. So it does make it quite an attractive proposition. I believe there's also supply squeezes potentially in Chile, which is the largest producer as well. So that Goldman Sachs target, I think, was 11,000 for the year. And in the next decade, around 15,000.
Wow.
So
15,000. I'd seen the 11,000 by the end of 2021. I hadn't seen the 15,000.
yeah, so I think that's for the next decade, though.
Now, I understand most copper producers are profitable at producing copper at around the 6,000 US
Yes.
per metric ton. Now, if you're looking at an 11,000 price tag on copper, it's nearly double what they're profitable at. Surely stocks that produce copper are going to move into a positive direction, yes?
You would assume so, because you'd anticipate that the profits will be then passed on to shareholders potentially.
Potentially Newcrest mining, maybe, or something along those lines. Maybe we discuss that a little bit later in the show. But for now, we have had a video question that's been emailed into us. Why don't we go to that right now?
Hello, KOSEC team. This is Dennis from the Gold Coast. I've got a couple of questions for you. Firstly, what sectors or industries would you recommend to invest in 2021 that you think would perform better? And secondly, I've been watching Bitcoin's performance. Do you think there's still opportunities to invest in it even at the current price level? Thanks.
There we go. There we had it. What a good question by Dennis. Thank you very much, mate. A book or a magazine coming your way. Let's go over to our panel. So let's leave Bitcoin out for 1 second. What sectors do we think are going to do well? What are we thinking on that question from Dennis?
Well, I think we really touched on something just perfectly there. So I think copper is something which is
obviously.
doing quite well. So,
Hardly a sector, but yes.
well, materials in general. I think companies which are involved in building materials as well.
Okay.
So you companies like Boral, for
Boral,
example,
yep.
which is a very clear one that has operations over in the US. So something which can really benefit from some of the trends we are seeing globally.
Let's talk a lot further into the future, though. I mean, we're talking sort of 10 years from now. What are we thinking? Is it simply going to be dominated by the crypto space? Is it going to be tech? What do we think? Long-term technology, maybe? Something along those lines?
Yeah, because like tech, we will need tech. We haven't been using tech. Like tech wasn't that important 10 years ago, but it's only going to get more and more important. The future and the possibilities for what tech companies can do is just endless. So I think there is growth for tech companies.
Okay, and maybe healthcare could be something very, very long-term. What sectors do you think are not going to do so well long-term?
Utilities, maybe, I think.
Yeah, utilities maybe, as people come up with new things. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say maybe financials might not do too well into the future. I mean, if we think about our banks, they store money, but with all this digital asset and certainly with investments coming out, maybe banks might see a little bit of depreciation.
Potentially, I mean, especially with these, I guess, low interest rates right now, people are not going to be sitting in cash and pulling money away from banks in general, and maybe moving into a little bit more risk on assets as well.
But let's finish off that question with Bitcoin, because he did say at these lofty levels, and I don't think the levels are as lofty now. Last time I checked Bitcoin, we were sitting below 50,000, having come from 62,000. This is US dollar.
Yeah.
So coming all the way down to the 50,000, which is around about a 15+% retracement back down again. Now, if a stock did that, we'd anticipate maybe a bit of a buying opportunity. Do you think it's a buy at these levels, or do you think further to drop, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I was looking at the Bitcoin chart, and it looks a lot worse now than it did a while ago. So in the previous pullbacks that Bitcoin had throughout the end of last year and the beginning of this year, it had a pullback, hit a higher low, and then began going up again. A lot of that was driven by macro factors like Elon Musk buying a lot of Bitcoin, PayPal accepting payments through Bitcoin as well. It has come down now, and I was looking at the chart. It has actually hit a lower low as well now.
Okay, so
purely technically, it doesn't look that incredible. It is incredibly hot as well at the moment. So a lot of money has been flowing into Bitcoin. I mean, you're seeing ads all over the place on the sides of buses and on bus stops.
Absolutely.
So it's a very interesting space, but I think one which is quite hot at the moment.
Yeah. But potentially picking up on a dip. I know that many times I've looked at that chart before I've gone to sleep at night and it's down 15%, and the next day I've woken up and it's back up again. Certainly, if you can time the dips, pick it up on the dip. I hope that answered your question, Dennis. So that's commodities and currencies and the events that shape them. Now, are you a bull or a bear? Let us know. Our phone lines are now open. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to have a look at the best and worst performers on the Australian market this week.
The world changed this year. So did the stock market. Is it time for a change in your portfolio? Invest with confidence. Invest with a solid strategy. Invest with KOSEC, KODARI Securities.
RBA has cut interest rates to a record low of 0.1%. Returns in saving accounts are now shockingly low. We have never seen these conditions before. The good news is that the stock market benefits from low interest rates and historically has outperformed property or any other asset class. KOSEC uses a unique stock market filtering system called Lotus Blue, which helps generate solid profits for clients. During COVID in April 2020, KOSEC recommended Kogan, which went up 340%. In June, KOSEC recommended Saracen Minerals, which went up 23%. In October, KOSEC recommended Nickel Mines, which went up 33%. If you want your money working overtime, you need to know what stocks to buy and when to sell. That's where KOSEC can help. With no barriers to entry, it's just simple investing. Build wealth with a concrete investment strategy. Go to kosec.com.au. Get a free 7-day access to Lotus Blue and receive our top 8 stock picks today.
Throughout time, humans have relied upon innovation to advance and evolve, using new and improved methods, having meaningful impact on society and industries. In order to advance, ideas were transformed into new products and services. The stock market has also evolved through innovation. Innovation has been key to KOSEC's success. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning, KOSEC has streamlined processes to bring better opportunities to clients. Opportunities that might have otherwise been missed. Join a company that innovates to bring clients the best opportunities and service. Invest with a solid strategy. Invest with confidence. Invest with KOSEC. KODARI Securities.
Welcome back. Let's move on to our next section now and have a look at what the best and worst performers from the week were. Were there tears shed this week? Who lost money and who has Christmas come early for? Caroline, let's go straight over to yourself. We're going to call you the queen of charts because you've got your normal chart you want to have a chat to us about.
Yeah.
I like that nickname. No? Okay, cool.
No, not really.
Not really.
Okay, so if we jump straight right into the chart, we can see that the top performing sector for this week is healthcare, 1.4%. So not that much, but it's not surprising because it reflects the defensive nature of the sector. Fisher Paykel and healthcare, so that's FPH, up 4% this week. No major announcements, but Helios Limited, another prominent healthcare player, was up 3% this week. But more importantly, I want to focus on the worst performer, so that's energy, down 4.5% this week. So Oil Search, ticker code OSH, down 5% this week. They released a quarterly activities report today outlining reduced production. But another player that hasn't done too well is Beach Energy, ticker code BPT. It's down 8% this week, considering the fact that oil hasn't been trading much for now.
So which ones do you, and I think I was looking at that quite surprising, even though with those positive retail figures that came out, I noticed that the consumer discretionary space, or the retail space, wasn't up by much, sort of relatively flat.
Yeah.
Certainly a mixed, certainly very, very mixed in terms of that. We had some big movements to the north and some big movements towards the south as well. Stock pickers market.
Yeah, but as you said earlier, it's a little bit of uncertainty and choppiness. Despite iron ore soaring so much this week, our iron ore producers didn't reflect that positivity.
It was amazing. I think on the day that iron ore went up 4%, I think Fortescue Metals was down.
Correct.
Yeah, down very slightly. And BHP didn't fare that well either. Does that just mean they're just too toppy, too heavy, too overheated?
Could be that. Could also be the, I guess, the noise we're hearing about super taxes imposed on the iron ore miners. At the moment.
So that came from Mr. Rudd, is that right?
He's again pushing his super
over
taxes.
in Perth, is that right?
Well, most of them are based over in WA,
of course, yeah,
so that would obviously affect them and also iron ore players globally. So
he's coming out with this whole idea of a super tax on iron ore players because of the lofty prices and because of that.
Yeah.
And he tried to do this back in 2008 as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was around the peak of the mining boom. He tried to do it as well.
Not the most popular character. He's making a bit of a resurgence. I notice he's got a beard now, so that's not that. So that's what you two think. I've got my little voice in it. Should we go to the street and find out what they're looking at? Ladies and gentlemen, back by popular demand, let's go to our next section now. Let's take it to the street and find out what they're saying. This is Street Walks, Street Talks.
Welcome to Street Walk, Street Talks. I'm in our beautiful city of Sydney, asking people about the market. Why gold?
Because I'm in the gold business. Well, we've got a gold project at Pine Creek in the Northern Territory.
Oh yeah.
And we've got a lot of gold.
What mining company is that?
Wild Bull Resources Limited. We'll be producing in the second quarter of next year.
Okay,
so the third quarter.
So it's a new business.
Yeah, well, it takes years to get your approvals.
Yeah.
The government.
Well, young business for the gold industry, I'm guessing.
Well, the governments just take so long to do the approvals. Then you've got other forces, you know.
Right.
Like red tape, bureaucracy.
Right. Okay. So you've got a little bit of politicking to do before.
It's all finished now.
Okay.
The wet season's just finishing, and we can get onto the ground.
Right.
And next year we'll be producing the third quarter of next year.
Right. And do you wear any gold? Do you have any gold rings or bling?
Gold. I don't fully understand Bitcoin, but I understand gold.
You put 20% crypto, the rest ETFs.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's quite interesting. And what are your favorite cryptos?
Doge at the moment.
Doge?
So I did momentum trading 2 years ago. Tried to write a program for it. Used Dogecoin just as the tester.
Right.
I accidentally just checked it the other week. Dogecoin's like 40 cents a coin or something.
You're kidding.
I just made 50 grand. Very nice.
That is very nice.
Yeah. That depends. Depends what you'll do. How much you know about the stock market. If you want a coin, look into Luna because they want to use that for how would I word it? For mortgage-backed securities, and like you got Ethereum for contracts. So
okay. Cool.
Depends how much you know.
So you're very much focused on the end case scenario of the coins that you
the blockchain stuff.
Yeah,
so I work in IT and I know finance.
Right.
It depends what you're trying to do. So Ethereum for contracts, Bitcoin for value.
Right.
There is uses for it.
Right.
We use a lot of tech. Hopefully we start using blockchains for open ledgering, I guess.
Yeah.
Transferring of money, no international fees, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. I can't think of many more uses for it.
Yeah.
You can't stop something that's decentralized.
Yeah.
So it'll only get bigger.
Yeah.
So if someone told you that a few years ago, you would have bought a lot more Bitcoin. So,
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, congratulations.
I mean, advertising.
Advertising. Do you have any insights into the industry that you work in?
In terms of what?
In terms of, say, COVID, recovery, have you seen a pickup in work again? Or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It seems to be making a comeback. I mean, a lot of the clients last April, if you actually rewind back to 2020, my industry, a lot of programmatic buying was facilitated by travel and finance-based companies. They just bottomed out.
Right.
And CPMs, which is the sort of like, metric for payment, just went through the floor. But it's made a comeback, which is really pleasing to see.
Right. So you're seeing more work. It's looking rosy, and
it's looking better.
it's
Yes.
looking better.
And what's great is this is funnily enough my first trip interstate. I got this story about this suitcase. My wife got it for me for interstate travel, thinking in 2020 we were going to be traveling quite frequently. And this is the first time I've used it, and that was bought for me in 2019. So
Right.
it's really good to be back.
Be very careful at the moment, mate, because the world's at the peak. Yeah. I've seen massive growth in regional areas. So people buying property thinking they can work from home.
Okay.
So buying in areas they want to live.
Right.
But
So the dream homes are happening.
yeah, problem is they'll eventually have to work back in the city again, and they'll realise they can't work from home anymore.
Right.
At the end of the day, there's going to be massive population growth in Australia. There's no choice, so it's going to keep growing.
Right.
It's like a giant Ponzi scheme, mate, so you might as well get in while you can.
All right. Great. You heard it here first.
Favourite burger? Grilled. Stock tips or trips? Yeah, that's my line of work.
Yeah. What sort of sectors are you looking to put money in at the moment?
Gold, advanced materials, innovative stocks.
Okay. So tech, obviously.
Yeah, graphene.
Graphene. Isn't that the stuff that's super thin but super strong?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to change the world.
Okay. And what sort of things could it change?
Well, anything, you think of plastics and you think they're cheap plastics, but putting graphene into them makes them as strong as steel.
Right.
It will go into fire retardants. The Grenfell fire disaster, which was covered in cladding, if they had been using graphene, you wouldn't have had the fire.
Really?
So it's tremendously safe, advanced fire retardant.
I have a super fund, mainly invested in equities.
In equities. Okay. And was there a reasoning behind why you chose equities over other asset classes?
I think it's the best form of investment for return and security and flexibility of investment.
Right.
So that was Street Walk, Street Talks, and this was a very interesting segment. We've got a lot of really interesting questions that we're going to talk about today. Let's unpack everything. First and foremost, the first gentleman, which I have to say was very similar to one of the gentlemen that was on the last boat cruise that we did. I think it was even a guy talking about different types of hydrogen projects as well. But this guy's talking about gold. Correct me if I'm wrong. Very snappily dressed, and he is a gold company that's going to be profitable in the future. It's called Wild Bull. Okay, maybe, and it's not IPO'd yet, so it's not a listed exchange, so we don't obviously cover it. But prospects for gold, what do we think?
Good. It's on track to record its third consecutive weekly gain. The past 2 weeks, a lot of the heavy lifting was done by Chinese and India's central banks.
Yes.
They were said to have bought about 8.8 tons of gold.
It's interesting because there's a lot of gold miners out there. I think there's 96, I believe, that are listed on the exchange. A lot of them don't. They're just still searching for gold. And what he said is quite interesting. It's up to 10 years to try and find and get everything regulatory approval. I didn't know about the regulatory approval. I didn't know that took so long. But you were looking at Northern Star last week. And that's a very profitable gold company recently merged with Saracen.
Yeah.
And that for a very long time was below $1 for a very, very long time.
Many moons ago. Yeah, a long time.
So if you get into these ones nice and early, you could do very, very well. And obviously this gentleman's hoping and banking on this movement towards the north. Not a bad space to be in.
No, certainly not at the moment, yeah.
Let's go to our next one. Our next guy was talking about Bitcoin and cryptos. What did he say? 20% needs to go into crypto, and he said 80% into 80% goes into ETFs, exchange traded funds. Thoughts on that?
Well, obviously ETFs are very low risk, but they are also a little bit more boring.
Yes.
So you do have that added. I guess you're getting all the excitement from the 20% of cryptos, which move quite a lot. But I mean, if it works for him, it works for him, I suppose.
I suppose that whole ETF thing is like, because the ETF exchange traded fund, that is a conglomerate, like it's a number of companies that they put into a fund. You buy shares in that sort of fund. But here's the thing. If one of them goes down a lot, you've got no control over whether you get in or out of it. It just goes down a lot. Is there merit to say, do your own research, or maybe even something, potentially hire someone like ourselves to do the research for you and just go into the selected really good business? Is there merit behind that?
Yeah, because I think like what we always tell our clients, risk and reward, high risk, high reward. But if you're a more risk averse person, then you probably would not expect such a huge reward as well.
Because I was thinking about it the other day, our iron ore's obviously done exceptionally well. So you could go into an iron ore ETF, just potentially when we go into a lot of iron ore companies. I'd be looking at BHP, I'd be looking at Fortescue, obviously. And if I was doing an ETF, you'd have to go into all iron ores, or most of them. Champion Iron, however, is actually downgraded. It's, I don't know if it's downgraded its guidance, but its production was not up to scratch. Is that right? So the difference between going directly into shares or going into an ETF is by going directly into shares, you can obviously pick and choose what's looking really good. Is that right? And you're at your own, I suppose, mercy or detriment, I suppose, which is quite a good thing to be able to pick and choose. Would that be a safe assumption on the big difference between that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the market's the closest thing to a perfect, market where information is publicly available because companies have to follow regulations for us to see what's happening.
Very good.
Obviously, yeah, but go ahead.
Let's go to our next one, which is, I think, we're talking a bit about advertising, but also property regional. So he says a lot of people are buying regional property to be able to work from home. Do you think we're actually going to come back into the city at any stage? Or do you think this is going to be a big work from home kind of thing?
Well, I mean, obviously the people are taking advantages of the current trends. So able to work from home, it's obviously a lot easier than taking transport to the office every single day. Although I do think there's probably something to say about productivity.
Yes.
Working from home, I think that's going to be a major issue, which maybe works for some people, doesn't work for others. Yeah. But with this vaccine rollout coming through, I think there's going to be a bit of a push, much as in the same way that gentleman mentioned, towards coming back to the office.
The final gentleman that we spoke about, he was talking a lot. He was very bullish on equities. He was right into it. The guy in the suit, very snappy dressed, and he was right into it. He said, "Yep, this is the only place to sort of be." He was talking about liquidity. Okay, and about how to get cash available. I suppose there's lots to be said for that. If you've got money in a house, it's a bit hard to sell the house if you need cash. But if you're in shares, I suppose you can sell within 2 days and have that money into your account. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a very fair assumption.
Very, very good. So that was the best and worst on the ASX this week. Do you have a stock that you've been watching for a while? Is it time to buy, sell, or maybe even average in? Why not send a message and we can ask our panel? In the meantime, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with your final section of the show.
How do you get the highest returns in the stock market on a consistent basis? Obsessed with this idea, Michael KODARI forms KOSEC, KODARI Securities. He seeks, in his own words, a revolutionary investment strategy based on better information and knowledge. Wealth begins with better knowledge, becomes his motto. He seeks to identify and accurately pick the next top-performing stocks on the ASX. He seeks for consistency. Michael KODARI creates a unique stock market filtering system he names Lotus Blue, named after a flower that blooms just once. Because in investing, timing is everything. See how accurate KOSEC stock picks are. Get a free 7-day access to Lotus Blue today. If you want the KOSEC investment edge, you know what you have to do. Call KOSEC now or visit kosec.com.au and take advantage of the insights he reserves for his clients.
Trust is key to any relationship. Fortunately, it's nothing that can be bought. It's earned. As an investor working with an organisation, they need to demonstrate integrity. They must show consistency, full transparency, accountability. They must be genuine in their approach. Their core values must align with yours. They need to put your interest first. If you are considering investing, work with an organisation that earns and nurtures trust. Work with an organisation you believe in. Work with an organisation that treats you the same way they like to be treated. Join an organisation that views clients as people, not people as clients. If you are considering investing, consider KOSEC KODARI Securities.
As kids, we were active. We were creative. We questioned all things. We celebrated everything. We took risks. We had no limits. We had dreams. Our imagination helped us solve problems and create new possibilities. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions." We are in an ever-changing world filled with fear and uncertainty. Don't let that change the inner child within. As Walt Disney said, imagination has no age and dreams are forever. KOSEC is here to help build your dreams and create possibilities. Secure your success with KOSEC KODARI Securities.
Welcome back. The moment we've all been waiting for, the final section of the KOSEC Show. So let's go straight to our panel and let's go have a look at what we're looking at this week. Caroline Wong, we'll start off ladies first.
Sure.
What are you looking at this week and why do you like it for the week to come?
So I'm looking at this opportunity that hasn't been brought to the table before. It's called Harvey Norman Holdings Limited, ticker code HVN, ASX 200 company. Every time we think of Harvey Norman, we usually associate it with the retail segment. They sell beds, they sell furniture, they sell electrical appliances, yes?
Yes.
But a lot of us, we do not know that they are heavily involved into the property segments as well as franchise.
That's interesting. So Harvey Norman, hardly normal. We like that. Okay.
Moving on. Moving on to the financials. Cash flow, earnings, return on equity stable for the past 3 years. As such, it is highly favored by broker calls. It's highly favored by institutions. Credit Suisse, Morgan Stanley, and Morgans have all given add and outperform ratings with about 7 to 14% upside. If we look at the technicals itself, it has made a very steady recovery since it hits its lows in March 2020. So since last month, it has entered into this consolidation pattern. And though it is down today, the stock has managed to make a higher low.
Very good, very good. Going over to Miss Ryan, what are you looking at this week? Why do you like it for the week to come?
So I'm looking at a company called Newcrest Mining. So this is obviously one of the larger companies in our index, top 20.
Yes.
On our ASX. We did touch on Northern Star, I think it was towards a few weeks ago. And for the reasons that we discussed already in the podcast, so gold and copper seem to be moving in a very positive direction. So
and that's a miner, yeah? Gold and Newcrest is mines,
exactly.
Gold and copper. Yeah?
Exactly. So there's a lot of synergies, I think, to be had there. We already touched on the macros for gold and copper.
Yes, of course.
And the broker, or rather the institutional valuations are very positive. I couldn't find the negative rating from any company. And I think given the current macroeconomic environment with the amount of monetary fiscal stimulus we have seen over the past year, I think gold is looking quite attractive at current levels.
Very good. So we've got Newcrest Mining and we've got Harvey Norman as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in this week. On behalf of everyone here at the show, I want to wish our clients, friends and colleagues a safe and happy weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week. My name is Will Brownlee, and this has been the KOSEC Show.